Out with a.
We're chasing down some brush, which I didn't do any of that today. We finished up those FEMA projects. Not FEMA, excuse me. The grants for, the Better Back Roads and, grants and aid. That's what we did today instead of the brush, but we gotta get back to the brush and get that cleaning up. It's,
Would it,
a task.
would it help you at this point to get a log truck or something? Does that help you?
This is brush from the shear storm or just in general?
This last storm that came through. Uh, If I could find one without, and get him to come fairly quick, he'd make a lot faster work up. But if he's gonna, if I can't find somebody, come right along, we probably will get it done one way or another.
Okay, well, I just wondered if it was,
If we got anybody in mind,
no,
Chipper.
but, no. That chipper idea that I just heard, that is something that we should think about getting. At some point.
You wanna look into that project for a bit?
We can start looking, but we got, well, honestly, we got a lot more to buy before we buy a chipper. We have, several wash spots, and I think we've gone over those, and, we're trying to figure out getting a bid out to, get them fixed. I don't know how long that will take, but it'll be as quick as possible. Stratford Road.
why can't you,
Stratford.
oh, you mean where it slid?
And still working on an engineer to come and, work on that Stratford Road with us. Figure out what we're gonna be able to do. I don't know, I'm still a little bit concerned we'll do anything, seeing there's no trees tipping over. That's what I've heard every time that we deal with this thing, ain't no trees tipping over, ain't nothing to worry about. So I don't know,
So the spot that Matt fixed, was that because that was especially bad, or was it the opposite, that he could get in there and fix it?
just so it's clear to all of us, what Matt did held. It's above what Matt did that didn't hold.
Right.
And I just want that to be clear, because Matt did a good job and none of what he did moved.
But the next spot above that is,
But 5-10 feet above that, like go a little bit, oh yeah, I agree with that, but it's not where he was working.
right, And
And that needs to be fixed, and we've been working on that for a long time. And we literally haven't got nowhere, right? So, but supposedly, I talked to the man this afternoon. And he's real close to getting something up here for you folks to look at, might possibly be all together by the end of the week. I don't know that to be a true story. Larry's truck is actually in the shop, being built. And so that means we will have to break away at some point and run up there and. Because somebody has to go tell them where they want everything inside the cab. And did you get a truck right
Yeah,
there?
that's scary. Scary, scary.
I know.
and then like the Hoyt Hill. Tuttle. Culvert. What do we do with that?
What are we gonna do with that?
Is this the one that they looked at?
Kind of waiting on some direction.
What did Thomas's drone journey find there?
The underneath the bridge is no different was 100 years ago. But lower bank wall is, in my opinion, starting to weaken. But the water actually got up. When it got so full, the water was coming through and it forced the water up over those rocks in there. And it washed away the material between the rocks, the big flat rocks and the blacktop.
That's why.
And then it decided to go like that. So
So that's partially a stone culvert.
it's all stone. And that's been the other issue. Nobody's wanting to get rid of it. I think it's time for it to go, to be honest with you. though.
Mary Ann could get us a historic structures grant for that.
Well, the one reason why it's time for it to go is only a few of us even know it's there. Nobody gets under there and look at it. It ain't like it really is something that people stop and take pictures of and look it all over. And that's just my opinion of it, but, I think a bridge that never plugs would be nice.
Yeah. How did the Better Back Roads ditching do? Jim Hudson was saying that on Gee Hill, which they did a lot of that rip wrap and beautiful ditches, like that's still there, but the whole road's totally gone. They have a ditch and no road now.
I don't really want to eat any crow, but I will say that these came through with flying colors. But that don't mean the next rain won't wipe them out, because it all depends on how big the rain is.
Yeah.
The other night when we had that windstorm, my brother was actually in the hayfield up there. And he said, you wouldn't have believed it. He said, but you literally right in the middle of that field was standing in 2 inches of water. That's how hard it came down and how fast it was there.
By Pleasant View Farm up there.
Yeah,
Wow.
it just, and all the brooks up there showed that there was a monster bunch of water went down through in the flash.
Yeah.
By the time we got there, it was all back to normal. But for
Yeah,
15 minutes, it was
talked
rolling.
to Gary Welch, and he said they didn't get no wind, but he said he never seen it rain so hard in his life.
Hearing, for the portion of Stratford Road that we had before the storm, that the cave in slide before the storm, has that engineer come out and looked at that yet?
I thought he was coming today.
He was the today guy? Okay, I thought he was looking at the other stuff. Was he gonna look at it all?
He's gonna look at everything. And, so now we're right. But he's supposed to have some stuff already done. On that first one, just getting everybody's numbers tied together and sent to us to let us know what the cost is.
And so we'll have to bid that one out because it'll be,
Well, I don't know. It seems to come with a price tag already on it, as far as I can tell.
so I don't have a signed grant for that one yet. I'm getting Gary comes to one of you signing for me tonight, our copy of it, and then they have to countersign it. Then we can start our work, but I think we will over our precedent, we still have to bid it out, right? Who would you use to do the work?
It's still up in the air. I have no idea. Who would do the job.
So then we would have to.
Our procurement,
Yeah, would have to require us to bid it out, even though the engineer can tell us what the things should be done and how much it costs. He's whatever they want.
I would imagine you have to, or it'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it was already stamped on what the cost. So maybe you're supposed to get your fellows to come in and say, can you do that for that? I don't know. It's a little bit funny. But, it'll be the first one we've ever done in this direction.
else, yeah,
I think as far as normal stuff, we're about covered. We need,
Thomas Graydon,
Thomas is, he graded today, because we got those
one, to finish.
grant spots took care of, and, but do I dare to let him grade tomorrow? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like it's gonna be wet the entire weekend, watching the weather
They
tonight,
said this morning, Thursday and Saturday.
so I don't think we'll be stirring up much of that.
So, while we have all these smiling faces here, how do you wanna handle? How do you wanna handle your paperwork and FEMA stuff and stuff like that? You want Mariah to do it all?
Yeah. True.
I think it's probably gonna be between this one and this one over here.
And Becky too, yeah.
Oh, Becky, I think the three of them probably can make a good duel.
Can Brenda help you with any,
I think I'm more on the outside
looking at like?
and making sure they're getting any, and I found out today, she's getting a lot of, not everything, but you're getting quite a bit of stuff that's important. That's coming down through Kim,
Okay,
so that helps me.
And anything that's important, she calls me up and lets me know what's going on. Not like we'll be left in the dark with. I think we actually get it covered pretty well.
you gonna be able to handle
Yes,
that with
we're,
her help?
yes, me, Becky, Marianne, Brenda, we've all had powwow, we got it
Okay.
all covered.
Okay. I just don't wanna leave him hanging.
No. We've been
I-
riding around taking pictures.
Yeah, I
hanging out.
know that.
I think I got my hands full just trying to get people in and get people to do the work and,
Yes.
uh,
I
do
think
the
you
work
do.
ourselves and this and that.
The portal and set us up to report as a site that needs grant. Becky has created a template for all of everybody to report their FEMA hours. We can report all the work hours, all the admin hours, so that's all being done. Becky has a list of all the items, all the roads, so she can put the invoices to them. We have a sort of structure set to report everything. The key, Mariah's publishing for some bids, because some of the roads we now need the proposals to be able to report the fixes. And then really, we've been in touch with him, I've talked to him twice and having him our contact with the state, and there will be like sessions for us to call into and listen to, now that we've actually adapted with the clear. So she'll be sending those around next week for us to listen to, be able to make sure that the documentation right, but her feedback to us both times I called her was just document, and then they actually will have someone who helps you do the report with you. But as long as you have all of your documentation, all of your pictures, all of your policies, then she said,
I got two questions. First off, just to tell you, some of these people are just showing up, like on the weekend, the FEMA guy showed up and called me. And it turned out he was in town, and wanted to have a drive around, so we did. I didn't see your truck there at that time. The other one is, is the wind event, according to Kim, included still in the regular flood event?
When I talked to Kim, she said that there was no end date on the FEMA disaster, so to just document, like record the date that the wind disaster happened, but as of right now, it would fall in because there was no end date to when that disaster was declared.
Because Lorenzo from FEMA said that he doesn't know anything about that, so just document, but that makes sense.
Yeah, that was straight from Kim myself.
and I think what she said to us was literally just document everything, and then if they set an end date, then stuff is stuffed out, but as long as we keep track of everything, we'll be able to enter it into the system, as Mariah and I verified today.
And hopefully next time he comes, he said he's he's attached to this area. He's gonna be back to Tunbridge. And I hope he gives a little more heads up. You know, because he was just sort of downtown and called me and wanted me to come right down.
Are we gonna need to use the emergency relief fund for any of this?
We are.
We are.
We
Are
are.
we gonna drain it?
I would say most likely also.
I was gonna say, just overalls in the last 2 weeks. Well, we have.
The price of material is, in my mind, we're being gouged.
A little bit, I noticed
The,
that.
the shot rock, which had, we don't do anything besides blast and it falls out here, $20 a yard. And, we're using more than I had hoped we would on this new bridge that we're gonna put in. That's gonna be money that will not come from FEMA. That's gonna be money that's gonna be coming out of our pocket. And, this whole project, because of FEMA, I should imagine is gonna up what the bridge really is meant to cost. I don't know how much of that Ruben is gonna be able to eat. That will cross that path in time frame. We're too far into it, we're thinking about quitting.
Is that a match? So,
That's I believe that's a 80% match.
Which one are we talking about?
The bridge for Goodland Hill. No song was 75 them, 25 us. And this is the part I've learned about before. We do got a lot of coughing that to do, no matter what we get grants or we don't.
and what other towns do who don't have that rainy day fund?
Yeah,
They're, borrowing.
They are.
So we had Windsor, we had to do that in Irene, borrow from Estoma. Which might be an option for you folks to maybe talk to them. They were very kind to us from Irene.
Well, like lead the hope and things like that. And
Yeah, I don't even know what they're doing.
So they, like, Cleveland awards 200,000, we haven't spent that.
Does that mean they're gonna give us 90,000 or 200?
190,000, right?
Well, I think the job itself is like 230 something. Just so you don't forget.
2 bids here, I don't know if you went, but one's 239, 220, that's from. Well,
I think 239 is one fine and then.
with your taxes going up. like that.
the other one. was 239. So it was 239 again.
I just want to throw it out there. So you not sticker shock when it comes rolling in.
More sticker shock. You get the truck already.
No, it's not all.
They're on the agenda. But I'm not gonna-
It's up to the chair. The
What
acting,
did you say?
she wants to keep going so she can go to a softball game. If it pleases the chair.
Okay.
Yes. I'd love to have you go to softball.
Hi, Gary.
He called me earlier.
It's scary. I could feel it.
Just leave them here, I guess.
So we have the sidewalk scoping engineer has been selected, and that project is gonna move forward.
We have the class 2 structures, which is the $200,000 for Stratford Road. That contract came in. And then your new grants and aid for 24, which is the one we haven't picked a project for yet. That one came in. So all three of these need signatures. And then my only other big question is the MERC weatherization proposals are open now, and we had originally talked about this building and that, the town offices and the town hall. But then we awarded ARPA dollars to cover those two activities. So I don't know if you want me to go forward with applying for different buildings, because if you remember MERC, we have to, the assessments will be done by the end of the year / into January, February. Then you apply for the full grant. The full grant takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to be awarded. We're low priority as according to their list. And then if we are awarded it, it would still be months after that before the project would start. So you're looking at 2025 before work would be done in these two buildings using those dollars. If we got a MERC grant. So I'm assuming we're not using MERC for these two buildings, which means I need to know which building we want to apply for instead.
There's like a small like scoping grant first, right? And
These are the
seem
ones-
pretty likely to, we would get, right?
Yes, so every town is guaranteed to get at least one of these assessment grants. So it would be whatever building or buildings we submit. They will come and they'll do the assessment for weatherization. And then they give you that, so that when you apply for the grant, you automatically have what you're applying for. This is what we need to weatherize set
The
building.
only other building we got, so town, right?
What the town
Garage.
garage. We fully funded that one because you guys agreed to use, well, maybe that money's not now, but you agreed at the meeting to use funds from a different fund to do.
Yeah.
Let me just look it up in a minute. So we did basement and attic weatherization of the town hall for 54,000, but the electrical upgrade was gonna be paid from the capital improvement fund. What's not that entire one? That's basement and attic,
But weatherization wise.
weatherization wise, it's basement and attic and electrical upgrade. Right,
And we were out
still do that.
partial and Mark,
Sorry, basement and attic for this building, right?
No, this one was the full building at 144. And then just basement, attic and electrical for that.
Would it make sense to have the assessment done because we could use that as sort of a template, even if we got outside contractors?
We're gonna have the work done.
Yeah.
Still go forward with these two buildings.
Yeah, it's all.
Becky, how much we have in that emergency fund?
Our emergency.
When we've been building there. Spend all that.
We haven't spent it, but we allocated it. By like $4,000. It's like 4,700 left.
What we have, we get up to 200, so about 130.
So I can move forward with doing that for those, still doing that for those two buildings, because we're not likely to get the more grant. That'll give us a leg up on getting bids to do this work. And then because of the timing, at a future meeting, we can talk about that, but we should talk about who went project management, these two projects, we allocated the money. But we haven't actually started either of those two projects.
We never did find out why Tunbridge was strangely a standalone amongst all these towns.
Based on that algorithm that they use, you apparently either burn too much wood or something.
Well, it'd be fun to find out where that came from,
We're at 130,
because we're not that different than these other towns.
How much?
132 second grade. And then there's some. The surplus from last year. Yeah. Like 92,000.
Well, the only reason why I was asking is because that one little wash over there is gonna probably eat up to 200,000 and eat up what you got over there. And I still got a lot to cover, so I was just kind of wondering about it.
Where's that?
Uh,
Where is that little wash?
that little one, oh, that was that one that we've been working on
Oh, okay,
all spring,
okay,
trying
okay.
to get something
Okay.
done with it.
okay.
Did that get worse from the storm?
You know, basically, if, I probably shouldn't say this to you, but, basically, if at any point you feel you can't handle it, you pull the plug and fix it the way you want it. And we still have that option.
Well. He's gonna supposedly, we're gonna get a report on that.
But every one of them have told me that if we feel we can't swallow that, then the town has the right to do what they gotta do to make it fix. We
For
just-
class two
We're
roads?
trying to make sure FEMA is involved on the next flood.
But did,
That fails and fails somewhere else because of that. Well, that's why we're taking these extra steps to, make sure that we're covered if,
but did this move much?
we can move iota.
Okay.
So bad it can't get.
Hmm.
It's so bad it can't get.
Okay,
Gary doesn't think he's gonna make it.
okay. Okay,
I'm good.
you good?
Yes.
Okay,
I don't think we could.
Now what?
Oh.
Okay, come in.
On the road part of it, I just wanted to say, I thought everything worked fairly well with us working together, but, communication could, or better radios for them could. That we can,
Definitely be a benefit, yeah.
that we could, talk better back and forth to, because, on that. One, Rod has a portable that I had given him during the flooding, and I think he's still using that to be able to talk back and forth with. Currently, the only communication we have is when he's in his truck, or Thomas is in his truck, but during those storms, they weren't in their trucks, they were in graders, backhoes, stuff like that, so somehow,
That little radio works 1,000% better than anything in our truck.
yes. And so that's a kind of a glimpse of what we were looking at to try to get that, grant to, give you guys regular stick, radios in your trucks, but that runs off of a repeater that's on a Cape Road. So that worked fairly well, but could be much better, I think, to be able, if we're all talking on one system would be handy, because the next day I tried to get a hold of you to something, and yeah, we didn't have the radio on, and yeah, there's no other communication, so.
And at that, even at that level, there was only I who had a radio.
Right,
The other two guys, they only hear me and the other radio from my pickup,
right, exactly.
which wasn't, it worked out.
Yes,
I think we did a fantastic job. I just, communication was, quite often. I can't hear you. I can't
Right,
hear you."
right, yep. Yep,
So. And I was actually starting to get a little nervous. We might have somebody we need to go search for. that,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And, I was trying to make sure you understood what I was trying to tell you, and sometimes that was difficult to make sure you got. the
Yep.
message.
Yep, definitely was, and that's part of the problem with those portables are only. They're only 2 watts or 5 watts, like that, 3 watts. So the ones that go in the trucks are 30 watts, so they're a lot more powerful. They're a lot more reliable to use too, so, if we're able to get even some of the bigger, some of the newer radios for all your trucks and portables for when you're out in a crater and stuff like that. Something would be better than. What we have.
Simon, do you have extras of those portables?
I-
Or would it make sense for us to invest in those for the road crew?
Extras, no, but I mean, I'm able to, like, in that case, I'm able to give them one. Or I could probably spare 2, but they're also the ones that I'll fire.
Right.
Everybody has one assigned to them, it's just. People were out of town or didn't, I know, I always send crews of 2 out during the storms, so. They don't both need their radios, so, we do grab a couple, but it would be nice if you guys. had
How much
some.
do those cost? I remember with the fire department.
They're expensive, but I don't remember. what
I
they
just
are.
bought new tri-band portables for, these are Kenwoods, $4,400 a piece. That will talk fire, police, at 700, 800, which is a different frequency, but they're on VHF radios, but you probably could get away with some used radios, but you know, and depending on what brand you go with, Motorola's twice, they're $7,500. But the new Kenwoods I bought that will talk to police, fire, another channel are $4,400. So that's the top of the line one, but
Right.
Do you see those with portables or
portables,
mobile
mobile,
radios?
the mobiles can be a little bit more than that. In the same price range for a good, well, you could probably get a straight VHF radio. Good one for, no, I don't want to say $2,000 for a mobile,
I was thinking that was about it.
but I can put you in touch with my radio guy too, that they've done very good for us.
Might be good to have a couple of those up in the
Which
garage.
one do you?
It might be good to have a couple of those up in the garage.
Now the electronics, which is, New Hampshire.
And did we budget in the ARPA money for high band?
I don't know what went in our.
Yeah,
I don't believe it was in. We tried to get another grant and include it on, and they wouldn't let us.
We got the base station, but not the.
Right, we got the base station going, which are still coming.
to start with the portables might make sense, because they could be in the trucks, or like you said, other vehicles, or even out chainsaw.
With chainsaws in the dark. In the rain.
Get an electric chainsaw, and put a light on
It's like a power tool, but that little light on it.
I even got scared one night. We were cutting up a tree and big wind started coming right over our heads. And they get a little scary once in a while.
And I just had one other thing on the road report, or the roads part of it, if there's any way that we can get, notification like. Of those roads like. 24 hours in advance or so we can get the notice out to everybody. So firefighters and stuff to be able to do that, and it also gives the ambulance. Both ambulances the ability to let their crews know, because I know, like, for first branch, for instance, if Chase is the one that we email, he isn't always working, so giving them us time to be able to pass it on would be.
What's the best way to get a hold of it?
For me, it's email, and I normally try to email right back when I get them in. And also on those, if we can get house numbers, just because I know most of the places around when we talk, but telling that to South Road Rescue, whose people aren't necessarily from around here. That's why normally when you call, and when I would do the things, I would have to sit down and look up, find the, on the 911 viewer, find the house address, and then put that in an email and send it. And I just don't have time to get my duos and she's been getting her body, it's been very good for that, so, but if we can get a little bit more advanced notice, would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Right, and I understand that, but it just, yeah. The ones we can would be.
Yeah, when I get closed down.
Right, that's a whole different story. Yeah,
And for those we planned on closing that next day, we had to call it off.
right, yeah. But no, overall, I think everything ready, the last two storms, the flood and.
Well, one thing Jerry said, since he's not here, we should say is he wanted the minutes though to show how much we appreciate the fire department and workers for the responding. It'll be 2 nights, right? Because both the flood event and this hiring,
Yeah.
you were both working.
We can file things for the grant. I am submitting our first emergency management report to July 30th. So we have our first round like reporting for that one we have the grant that we got. And I'm submitting Button Hill, which is the project that was completed. We will submit Whitney once we get a countersign.
I have a date for the generator to come and I reminded the communications people today to rattle their cage.
I can't remember what it, maybe it's in the minutes, but did we get Mary Ann to come in just for a general update, or was there something specific we wanted to do?
I don't think so. I think it was
Just
just,
the general.
yeah, just a general update.
The Jerry asked me to look at a grant for policing, which I haven't.
Oh, maybe that's it. Okay,
But it's, he emailed me. So I'll just put it on that.
okay. Excuse.
Yes, see you later.
I don't think our second agenda item, the transfer station attendant interview is going to show.
Okay,
So I think we can
Thanks,
move
Mary Ann.
right on to our,
thank you, Rodney.
Thanks, Rodney. Thanks, Simon.
to our sheriff.
So
Yeah.
he didn't call or nothing,
No, Gary said he was gonna call me and he never did, so.
okay. You're up.
Ryan Palmer, Windsor County Sheriff, select board reached out to the chat about potential service in Orange County. George, I spoke with, or Sheriff Convoy spoke with his captain Lenny this week or a week ago, and they seem, their opinion is that they're able to provide service for you folks, so I don't want to jump over boundaries or anything like that. Just, I mean, I think maybe good for to George and see where they're at, but they're trying to get their feet on the ground and build their agency up, so I'm not trying to anyways, I guess that's where I'm at, but and maybe Sheriff Campos could give some more insight onto where they're at and how they're doing. And then go from there. Or do you have, I'm not trying to run your meeting, I just,
That sounds.
Well.
I have the floor, do I?
We'll listen to you.
Well, I'm George Contours. And I haven't escaped the flood, and I'm glad, it's good to see the other people here who suffered as much as we have. I haven't been able to get to my home since the rain, except on a Honda ATV. And as of today, I've got 20 truckloads of riprap. 20 truckloads of riprap out of Northeast. And they're doing a pretty good job trying to fill a 300-yard river that appeared on my land, which took half of my hay crop, and the other half I can't get on it because it is so wet.
Where's
Can't
your
put a tractor.
land?
Right on the border of Washington and Orange.
Okay.
And so I've been in kind of sticker shock, just like everybody else. Putting out a huge amount of money every day for an excavator and bobcat, and it's just, anyway. I think we're doing a darn good job here in Tunbridge. I know that I personally assigned one guy, RJ, to Tunbridge for the last 2 days. I know he's been here. I'm sure anybody who works around the town would have seen his cruiser up and down the road here. And he's been putting in at least a minimum of an hour a day back and forth in the town itself. Now, we only have 5 people. I'm not going to kid you, we only have 5 people.
For the whole county.
That's correct. Well, for the towns that we are contracted with. So what we try to do is keep one man on one side of 110 and one man on the other side of 110 and try to service all the contracts. This is a fairly small contract. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, Mariah.
10,000.
10 even? Okay, that's roughly 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours a week. You know, if you extrapolate that on a 24-hour day, it's minuscule.
I
So-
guess the biggest thing that I've heard is how fast can you get to Tunbridge if somebody calls you?
Well, it depends on where the guy is. For instance,
Well,
if
right.
RJ is right here, then it could be just a matter of minutes. If he's sitting in Chelsea, it takes, well, 20 minutes maybe, to get down through there. And, we try to get it so that we're in the commuting hours, early in the morning and around noontime for sure. And then later on in the afternoon. Well, we don't want to say or tell you that we're going to be there every day at noontime because people catch on very quickly. And so we try to move that around so that people don't really know when we're coming and when we're going. I know some of the selectmen in another town wanted us to run radar in the town, and we did. And basically, the only people we caught were the selectmen. So, you know, you got to be careful what you ask for again. But I think we do an excellent job. Our contract, I think, is only, well, we said $10,000, and that amounts to, I don't know what the monthly is. But I can tell you that we depend on the contract money for our very survival. We have about seven towns. And they're all at the same rate, they're $55. And we went up $5. I figured that at least the previous sheriff never even considered the cost of living over the last few years. And so I'm trying to pay as much as I can to my deputies. I'm trying to expand my force, as Sheriff Palmer says. But it's difficult, because as you know, if you're an entrepreneur, you can't find anybody to work, much less in police work. It's difficult. And it's even harder for me to go out and find a category 3 police officer, one that can investigate everything. It's very difficult to find that because you got to pay them. You got to pay them decent wage, or they're going to pack up and move to another county or town or state or whatever. And it's easy for us to send somebody to the academy and spend $15,000 getting them through the academy, which is what it costs, just getting through the academy. And then they come out and they stay 2 months and then they move to the state or move elsewhere. And I was a state trooper for 30 years, and I've been in the sheriff's department for the last 21. So I got 51 years in the rear view mirror. So I've seen a lot of things happen. And one of the worst things that happened to me is I had a fantastic guy, fantastic. And Bozeman, Montana scarfed him up. He went to Bozeman, Montana. And I tried everything to keep the man, tried everything, but he wanted to travel and he wanted to leave. So I was able to hold that line at 5 people. Now you got to remember, in some days in court, I have 3 days in the court, 3 people in that court. So that absorbs just about everything I have. Fortunately, that's only about 1 day a week. So the other week, I have 2 people that have to be assigned by contract to the court. One on the door and one upstairs with the judge for security. So we're not flush, but I think we're doing an excellent job with what we have. We were pretty much stripped. Previous sheriff ran off with 2 of our cars. Left me with a huge debt from one of the local banks, a loan to the department. We don't know where that is, but we're paying for it. And, we're getting better each and every day. But I can't kid you, I won't be able to get more and more people because just the economy, it's just that, and the demographics. Young kids today are getting out of high school, going into college. When they get out of college, they're going elsewhere. I mean, I was a high school teacher out of college. They offered me a fast car and a big gun, so off I went to the state. So that's how easy it is to lose somebody. So I can't outbid anybody, because if I go less than the $55, then we lose money. And as you know, without the contracts, we can't exist because that's our only means of support. If we don't get the contracts, I can't pay the deputies, can't pay the deputies, they're gone elsewhere. And I can't blame a man for bettering himself. If he can find a job that pays more, what can I say? You know, I wanted to better myself throughout all my career. If this person, male or female, wants to better their person, then I'm all for it. I can't do anything. Unfortunately, my guy from Bozeman had no girlfriend, he had no ties. It was just an ideal, perfect scenario for me. I'm told how Bozeman found out he was here, I have no clue. But they wanted him bad enough, they flew a captain from Bozeman, Montana, to interview him and to talk with myself and my captain. So, and they're experiencing the same problems. They don't have the demographic problems that you have in Tunbridge or we have in Chelsea or all of Orange County. We just don't have the population. We don't have the kids that are interested. I mean, our work ethic has changed. I mean, you got to admit that everybody in this room, our work ethic has changed over the years. Kids aren't that interested in going off to jobs, and I don't know why. I don't know why. It's hard for me to find people to help hay. We pay handsomely for some help. Hey, it's hard even to find somebody to do hay with that. I don't know what I can tell you, except I'd be willing to take any question you've got. I don't usually get out of Chelsea any more than I have to, because I'm either stuck in the office. I fought with the internet people all day today. Between ECI fiber optics and the state of Vermont, it was a day of disaster. So I was in that mode all day long, and I had 3 people in court all day long. Today was a probate case. We had a probate court, we had the superior court, and we had a superior. So we're busier than one-armed paper hangers. As I said, we're doing the best we can with what we've got.
So George, how does the Orange County Sheriff's budget then? You know, like you said, it costs a certain amount to send somebody to.
The previous sheriff never budgeted. I'm not here to pass disparaging remarks, but rather than do a budget, he simply would go into the county, with the county judges, our county judge, and he said, well, I'm going to level fund. I'll level fund. So he level funded time and time again. So what happens on a level funding, even with the cost of living, we just keep losing and losing and losing and losing. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I'm just wondering, say, going forward, are you gonna estimate, say, how many
Yes,
potential
and
cadets you might send?
I am so pleased because I get along so very well with the side judges. As opposed to the previous. I really get along well. We can sit down and we can talk and we can discuss, and I can explain where we've saved thousands of dollars for the county, literally thousands of dollars from mismanagement, thousands. And they understand that. And as a result of that, they have been very amenable to what we want. And so I do plan, and we're having budget meetings, actually starting probably at the end of this month. Budget meetings to take a look at what we have. Some of our budget, some of our line items, we've never even touched. And so I'm opting to try to move funds around a little bit so that we can make life a little bit easier for the whole department. And I think they'll allow that. We introduced that at a meeting with them about 3 weeks ago or so. And they agreed that a lot of these line items have not even having been touched, that we'll be able to access some of that.
Okay.
Which we like, because I mean, I've got some old cars. My 2 best cars vanished from the face of the earth. I don't know, I know where they went, but they just took these 2 new cars. So I ended up with cars that needed batteries, needed cars that needed $600 or $700 worth of work on it. I just picked one up, it's almost $700 from Darlings. So our 2 road cruisers are fairly new. They've got about 60,000 miles on them. They consider that fairly new. So we're hoping that our fleet will last as long as they will, so that we can put capital fund on, get some of these cars back, be able to make life a little easier.
I just want to touch base a little bit on how sheriffs are funded. Do you just give a better, because you asked about how,
Right.
George, are you budgeting? sheriffs in Vermont are not funded like a typical municipal entity. We have kind of three sources of funding. The sheriff and I, our salaries, our base salaries actually come from the state. We're technically state employees. We're in the state retirement system. We have two, I have two state deputies, Orange doesn't right now, that are their entire existence is to transport prisoners, and they're actually kind of managed under an organization in Montpelier. Then we have our county budget. As we all know, in Vermont, there's not much of a county form of government, but the county cannot pay directly for law enforcement services based off a Supreme Court decision in the 70s, Stowe versus Lamoille. So there's no direct county funding for cops on the road. And then the third,
But our court system does pay.
the state pays for deputies to be in the court. And that's part of the contractual, and those are all contractual obligations. We have a contract with the state. As of July 1, they're now paying us $51 an hour that we have to cover, you know, the cost of a deputy in court. And that sounds like a lot, but the retirement system that we're in, the agency pays about 19%. But the contracts are huge, are how we provide law enforcement to the county. Just so everyone's kind of aware as we're talking, you know, so it's very hard for us to budget in the typical manner that you say, okay, I'm going to have this much money coming in. Fluctuates a little bit. I have people all over the state right now working with FEMA, doing construction. Anyways, but the point is, those contracts are important, but it's a very unique way of forming or funding a governmental agency. We're essentially a business. We're a quasi business.
And then the third.
So the third is contractual.
That's towns or something.
Towns, Pike, you know, construction,
Interstate.
whatever, the state contracting with us. We provide support to the Department of Children and Families, Buildings and Grounds, so many different agencies that we've helped provide security for, or what have you, wide load escorts. That's the third kind of contractual obligations that really help keep our entities afloat. The second part there is the county budget, which is very small. In my county, I think yours was around 400,000, but they cut it with dispatch and they kind of left them hanging a little bit there with everything that went over. And that pays for like your office staff, your insurances, those type of things. It cannot directly fund law enforcement per Supreme Court decision that needs to get challenged. And then the other form is like our state salaries. So my base salary, his base salary, and two of my deputies are paid through the state. But it's a very convoluted process. You've seen that we were allocated a 5% fee to administer our contracts that kind of changed with S-17. So it's just a very convoluted process. It's not as simple as saying, all right, you know, your budget next year is going to be $1 million. How do you allocate that? And it doesn't really work like that.
So like this, what was it called? The Special Investigative Unit that Orange County?
Yes. So
How does something like that get funded?
that comes from a state grant. Bill was able to secure 2 grants, which were $60,000 each. $60,000 for a single officer, which is what Windsor County has. I don't run that. I've been asked and approached to take over the SIU for Orange County. We've had some discussions back and forth, but I can't do it. 120 is my number before, you know, I'm not going to get involved in this because I'm not going to subsidize law enforcement in another county, but what my base salary probably for that detective is going to be about 66,000, just their cash price, right? Not talking about retirement insurance and all that. So for me, that position is around $120,000. That comes from a state grant or a portion of that. The idea behind it was that position that grant is just subsidizing a police officer in the county to take on these extra cases. And, you know, Hartford ran it for years in Windsor County where they paid for it. And it was just some extra money. Weathersfield currently has the SIU grant in Windsor County.
There's one per county.
Yes, ideally. Orange County, because Bill was on the board, for some reason, Orange County had 2 grants. They're $60,000 blocks. But again, so I've been in some discussions with them about stepping in and helping with that. But logistically and financially, it's gotta make sense, and I don't know that it does. But anyway, so those are special grants that come out of the state.
I had the same view as Sheriff Palmer has. I don't want to subsidize this. Because that's a radical. I can't afford to do that. They've asked me, and I've got someone who's ready to do that. She is already certified. She has worked with the SIU Special Investigative Unit for quite some time. And she left a couple years ago. So, you know, I'm waiting to see what the state's attorney is going to offer in terms of cash. Can we afford to do it? Is the real question. I mean, we certainly need to do it. They're inundated with cases. It's not like they're sitting around picking their nose all day. They're busy people all the
You
time.
have three state police barracks that cover Orange County, and so the cases are split up between those three barracks. It would be a pretty substantial caseload because you really don't have much law enforcement up here. Like in Windsor County, there's several agencies that take on those SIU cases. The SIU detective in Orange County is going to be very busy just because it's a large caseload. You only have a couple of part-time police departments in Orange County and then state police.
Because they're working with municipal police departments sometimes too.
Yeah, that you're taking on these. So I was an SIU investigator in Ludlow. I did some in Windsor, but I've been through forensic interview. So SIU stands for Special Investigations Unit. It's for child sexual assault, significant child abuse, like serious child abuse cases, and adult sexual assault cases. So as you can imagine, there's a very specific way that you should handle those, how you should investigate those, how you interview victims. And the idea is that detective goes through a lot of specialized training to do that, and then that's their primary focus, because these cases are very labor intensive as far as search warrants and interviews and investigations.
And it frees up VSP who would have to do that otherwise.
Sure. That's the short answer is, you know, their BCI folks are busy anyways, but the idea is that it just puts a specialized person doing specialized cases, because you can inflict a lot of trauma if you're not investigating these properly, you're not interviewing a victim properly. So it's based off nationwide best practices on how to handle these cases.
And of course, you have to have a special place to do that. Forensic interview is a very comfortable place for anybody that has to be interviewed. You know, has dual cameras and all kinds of things like that. That's all part of that. Can we afford it? I think. So yeah, I'm looking hard at it, and I'd love to have it back. But it's up to Colin Seaman what he can come up with for money. And we'll sit down and see if we can budget it. If we can, then I'd be glad to take that and get a sixth officer in there. And I mean, I really cried when we lost our transportation officer. Transportation officer, as Sheriff Palmer said, was state funded. And so basically you had a man for nothing. And so when he wasn't doing a transport, we could use him for something else. If during his something else, a transport came, he would drop it and take off. Well, what happened, I guess, it's no great secret. We weren't doing that. The transportation operator would pass it off to anybody who was free, and then that person would do the transportation. Well, it didn't take too long before Montpelier found out we weren't using that transportation officer in a justifiable way. So they took it away. And I went to, when I took office, I went and whined over in Montpelier, but they wouldn't bend. He said, no, the department did that, and so you got to live with it.
Well, I think in Montpelier, he's speaking about is the state's attorneys and sheriff's executive director's office, which is an organization that they really do more for the state's attorneys. They fund their budgets, but they budget for our state paid deputies, as we call them, state transport deputies. They don't really have any, they don't control us or do anything, but they fund the state paid scenario. They also have the person that kind of administers the SIU grants works in their office, but there's a whole grant board and stuff that oversees the allocation of those funds.
just getting back to Tunbridge for a moment, I think. What we would like most of all is sort of reactive policing, so that if. Mike looks out the window and somebody's sawzalling, his catalytic converter off, and he calls 911. Somebody shows up relatively soon. So
Well,
more than just patrols, I think we'd rather have, more than preventative, we'd rather have reactive, and whether that's VSP or Orange County Sheriff's or somebody trained, who. Can take-
Well,
can take data.
we operate from usually about 7 o'clock in the morning to probably 4:30 in the afternoon. After that, by statute, the state police take over the county, take over the town. You're aware of that, I'm assuming.
But if I call 911,
Mhm.
because there's a crime, I can see a crime happening. How does that dispatch get to the nearest policing?
Well, in our case, I won't speak for Windsor, but in our case, from about 4 o'clock on, Berry City, who we contract with for dispatching, takes the call. And they in turn relay the call to VSP. The VSP would come either from, I always call it that, from Randolph up here or Middlesex down, depending on, where it happened, how much manpower do they need, things like that. But everybody would like to be proactive instead of reactive. We'd rather be out riding around and catch the guy with a portable sawzall taking his. And, most of these people are doing it in the middle of the night. But I'm not saying that crime doesn't happen during the day, because it certainly does. I mean, when we're all off to work, they're off to work too. They crawl out of bed about noon or so and then go do their thing, start knocking on doors. That's why we'd like to be proactive, but of course we have to be reactive as well.
But does dispatch ever flow through VSP to, say, Orange County Sheriff's?
Well, we would invariably find out about something that happened during the night in our area. We'd find out what happened. Maybe there'd be a helpful, it could be statement gathering, it could be anything. But for the most part, VSP will take care of it from beginning to end. So like we had a suicide the other day. Someone over in Chelsea decided it was time to go. And of course, we arrived there first and we secured a scene. And
Because someone called 911?
oh, yeah, the wife did. She heard the gunshot and she went out and she didn't get too close, but she could see what had happened. She came back, called Chelsea, and we went over and secured the scene.
She called Orange County Sheriff's
Yes.
number.
Or 911.
Correct. Well, I guess it was, no, she called 685. So
Right.
she called the Chelsea number.
State police is generally, so they will. To be frank, it feels like they're trying to get out of the small town policing business. So say a 911 call comes in or call state police or to his dispatch. The question is, do you have a deputy in the area? And if that was the case, they would send one of his deputies, but most of the time. A 911 call is going to be filtered through the state police or what we call PSAPs, emergency dispatch centers, which actually could be Hartford or Essex. There's 7 or 9 across the state. And so that goes to the nearest unit on duty that works in that area. Generally it'd be state police, but during the day, if they had a deputy on, they probably would send it, I would think, right? They would ask if you were, to send a unit.
They're just as thin as we are. Bear that in mind. When I started in Middlesex in 1972, a night shift consisted of 7 to 9 men. Now, if you had 3, you got a flush shift. We used to fight for complaints back in the early 80s and late 70s. We fought for complaints. It's not the case anymore. And unfortunately, some of their hiring, you can see, has been a real problem to them. A lot of their hires have committed criminal offenses, felonies, and been arrested and what have you.
I think some of it though is a cultural shift within their agency. So they rely heavily on this idea that their staffing is really down, which it certainly is. They also have they're pretty top heavy brass wise, but culturally as an agency, they're more likely to answer a complaint by phone in a lot of situations than they are going to send a police officer to respond is what we're seeing and how it's coming across, which, I mean, that's their That's their,
They certainly do want to get out of rural policing.
So let's just take, Wilder, for example. Okay, we've got Hartford has a police department, right?
Wilder
Wilder.
or Windsor County.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so I'm just saying,
There's
somewhere in Hartford, right?
Yeah,
We're not
Hartford.
sure. So, but Hartford has its own professional police department, right?
For the town of
And it's
Hartford.
Windsor County covers it. And BSP covers it. So if there's a crime happening in Wilder, how does it, who responds? How does that work?
Wilder is is a village within the town of Hartford. So it's
Exactly.
always going to be a Hartford police. But
Before Windsor County or BSP would come?
yeah, that's
Oh.
their 24-hour, there's 9 agencies, I think, or 8 agencies in Windsor County. 5 of which are 24 hours.
So dispatch trickles down to
Yeah,
Hartford Municipal Police.
correct. Yeah, they have their
But
own,
obviously,
they have their,
Tunbridge doesn't have.
they have
that,
their own
right?
pretty significant dispatch. They're a large dispatch center that provides 911 answering and all sorts of things.
Okay, but that now Tunbridge, we
Mm-hmm.
don't have a police department,
Correct.
and Orange County's, not really the first necessarily on.
Your
call.
default police are this Vermont State Police.
Right,
And I think the hard reality with Tunbridge, like many Vermont small towns is, Windsor spends $1 million a year on policing. Obviously, it's a little bit different.
Windsor County.
Windsor, the town of Windsor, where I'm on the board down there, grew up in Windsor. Yeah, we spend over $1 million on policing, right? If you want reactive, you want somebody to come, the funding mechanisms for a sheriff department, it's really tough to say, hey, George, here's 10 grand, answer all our calls for service, right?
Yeah.
That's unrealistic. I think if you really are looking to get reactive policing, on the very short end, I think you look at Royalton, right? I think their police budget's north of 300,000, maybe more than that at this point. So, you figure one cop is roughly just with straight time, you're around 120 grand, plus or minus a little bit with insurance. A family plan is going to cost you in excess of $28,000. We have MVP, or we have platinum insurance, the platinum level. It's $32,000 a year for a family plan. It's about $12,000 for a single person. So retirement, all these type of things come into play. So I think the hard reality for Tunbridge, doesn't matter who you have in here policing. You can default state police coverage. You could, whatever. You're not going to get the service that you want. It's just not going to happen. But I think the reality is that it's going to be very expensive. Policing in America is just expensive. My new cruisers, just the cruiser without the equipment is about $42,000. That's a base, that's a police Tahoe, which actually they came in less than the Explorers and the Wranglers. $42,000 just for the car. Right. I had to buy 5 of those when I got here because our fleet was a little bit better shape than his, but I added more people and I needed cars that worked. Right. So we had to add cars. A portable radio to talk to fire, to talk to other police agencies. That was $4,400 a piece for an updated radio. So policing in America is just expensive. It's very expensive. And to get where you folks need to be, I don't know that you're in a situation this year that you're really going to get there this budget season, especially with all this nonsense going on with the weather. And I think that might be a longer term conversation of, do we spend, what's your town budget right now? $1 million-ish?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
We're talking highway and general
Yeah.
fund or just general?
Well, we talked to Royalton here 2 years ago
Mhm.
about covering us.
Yeah.
And it was gonna be 6 times what we're paying now, and that was still gonna be part-time.
Yeah, that's, if Sheriff Contoy says, no, I can't do this. And you ask me to step in. My number's 20 to 30 to give you some sort of part-time coverage.
But 4 towns, they each doing 30.
We could do, we could help, we could do something better, but so can he. So I don't want to, but regional policing is the solution for rural Vermont. And was kind of I'm in FBI lead a executive leadership course this week at Hartford PD, and they asked, well, what's your passion in life? People were, I go hiking, this, that, and the other thing. Mine was to fix rural policing in Vermont. And it's probably why I ain't got anything else going on in my life, but rural policing is the answer. Or regionalized policing is the answer. You have built-in sheriff's departments that can fill that void. But it is not, $10,000 was great in 1972 when he started. I won't say we fired one of our towns, but they budgeted 12,000. I said, I can't do it for that. I'm not going to. You got to hit at least 20 or 30 to make it make sense for us.
How many hours would you do in a town that gave you $30,000?
I'm at, we figure roughly about $60 an hour for coverage, but I'm not doing per hour. We've changed the way that we're providing service. So it used to be, hey, $60 an hour, $55, 50 cents, whatever you work out, and then we're here are these 4-hour blocks. I have moved to this more regional model where we give you a floor and say for that $30,000 at $60 an hour, we'll figure that we'll try to be in your town X hours. Somebody want to do the math on that real quick? So that's how we're providing it. It makes us, we're able to be a little more flexible. We just started that July 1. That was one of my real goals, was to switch to a more flexible model that, it's a little bit harder to quantify, but we're trying to track our hours. But it's for the customer, it seems like they're actually going to get better service out of that.
So that 4-town model, say, if you had essentially a full-time deputy covering those 4 towns,
Sure.
then
Yeah, and
we're
we're
getting
working
to some sort of reaction.
we're getting to the point where we're generally having somebody work 2 to 10. We found that about 80% of, when I ran the numbers in Windsor County, 80% of the calls of service came in between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. So I'm trying to staff that right now and slowly start taking calls for service. I think this year we're giving towns a little bit more. We also are expecting to have this year we had about 90,000 in governor's highway safety, but we're looking at about 300,000 hopefully next year we put in for. So hopefully we get that. It's a way to help subsidize. We're not supplementing, but we're adding to our patrol coverage. But again, I don't want to jump in if he's in a position where, it sounds like he's in a position where he can provide service and wants to. So I don't want to, my thought was they didn't have any contracts up here until I spoke with Lenny the other day, and it sounds like there are, and they're trying to provide calls for service, but.
Well, I tell my people, I have a different model. I enjoy rural Vermont. And I tell my people, when you're driving on the dirt roads, hard to find a cop wants to drive on the dirt roads, because the car gets dirty. They don't like a dirty car. I don't care if they got a dirty car, they come to the office and wash it. But I tell them, stop at the farmhouse when they're milking. Say hi, let them know who you are. Stop at the store and buy a soda or a pack of gum. Stop at the restaurant and have a bite to eat. Let the people know who you are and what you're there for. That's what I really want. That's what I really like. And that's what Vermont is. I was born and raised on Lake Champlain in Colchester. I didn't have much of a rural life back there, but I married a farm girl here from Washington 47 years ago, and she's still with me today. So I learned the farm life. My father-in-law and I got along famously, and I learned that going to town meetings with my father-in-law, he'd go to a town meeting and he would always wear a tie. It's just old Vermont, and I couldn't help but be enamored with that. And so I tell the guys, get off the roads, get off the pavement. Don't run up and down 302, writing a ticket on 302. Who cares? Who cares? Get on the back roads. If it's muddy, well, we got 4-wheel drive. Just take your time. Don't get too nasty. And the guys have turned to like that. It's nice to visit. makes your day go by fast. You get a call, you just go to it. But, you know, just visiting, letting people know that you're out there. You know, that's my model, and, you know, it's served me well over the years. Right?
Okay, you got any more questions?
Helpful. For sure.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, sorry, and I don't step on your toes or anything. I just wanted
No, I don't think we have anything that's really different.
Well, I mean, one
just
thing
what
that
it costs.
be interesting is sort of inter-county regional policing, like how would it work if it was like Sharon, Royalton, Tunbridge, Stratford?
I can tell you, if I scream bloody murder over in Sharon and I want a hand, I have no problem. I'm sure that they would come. I'm sure Hartford would come. I have no problem. I mean, that's the way Vermont is. That's, we have a radio system for it. That's what they made the radio for.
But contracting, you know.
Yeah,
how
well,
does that work?
that's a different animal. I was talking about, you know, basic survival.
Right. Yeah.
And that's, you know, we all want to go home to our families at the end of the day.
Okay, we're gonna move along here. Thank
Can't interest
both-
anybody in haying.
No, thank both you gentlemen
Yeah.
for coming in and talking to us. I learned quite a lot tonight, I think. About everything.
We know where to find you.
Yes, I'm sure I'll be in touch with both of you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, sorry I got a little late, but
Jonathan Bittnell. Mark straight up here.
Brenda's lawyer.
Yeah. Brenda's attorney came tonight.
I'm so.
Maybe he's
That's a
interviewing
good
for
idea
the,
then.
maybe he's
The
interviewing for the
transfer
transfer station.
Transfer station.
Don't even, I mean, we're a suit hiring.
Thought he was
Right?
Brenda's lawyer.
Oh. Could feel myself tense up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I was thought this. Oh. Here, have a homemade cookie.
Think I need it? Am I okay to sit here?
All right.
Wow,
The chair is not showing up
Oh.
tonight.
This
you
is
gotta
here.
watch out for her, not me.
No.
Careful.
But we didn't do follow-up on pastoral roads when Rodney was here, so
Well, he just said, oh yeah, they're low on the totem pole. And that was our follow-up.
so that's done, right?
Like, yeah, to cross that off.
Alrighty.
How much time do we have at this point?
None.
I think at this point, the only thing is Becky, but she's got all night, so.
We knocked
Take it
out
away.
Mary Ann, too.
Oh, yeah, Mary Ann left.
So,
Pressure washing follow-up.
That's just me.
so there's two topics. One was to respond on the trail steward side, legal trails. And if there's time, about at the last meeting, there was understanding to continue to explore reroutes, right? But I'd like to keep those topics separate if we can. So I'm thinking we start with the trail steward, and if there's time, we'll talk about the reroutes. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so the decision was to, do you have the minutes? It was to open the legal trails to the former use,
Let's see.
No,
where I made
no,
it.
Non-motorized.
non-motorized use,
Bikes was a question.
e-bikes.
Yeah.
All right,
Then I asked.
to go back to the former uses on trails, walking, biking, horse riding, non-motorized with a trail steward to overlook the trails and no organized events going through, right? So at the trails meeting last.
Oh, which was
couple weeks-
like 2 days later, right?
It was 2 days later, yeah, so we did a couple things. We appointed trail stewards, and normally it doesn't have to be a member of the Trails Committee. We just felt like, given the nature of this trail, we probably should, right? So thank you to Rudy and Thornton. They were appointed to Baptist and Orchard, okay? And given really
One could be enough, but we felt like, given the sensitivity and potential plan, we'd do two. Falls Hill, Susan Salster was appointed as Trails Steward. And then I took the Crossroad. I think we ran out of people, right? So otherwise I might have appointed someone else. And then we worked on a memorandum of understanding. You didn't ask for it, but sometimes I find that it helps for clarity, right? In this case, use the town highway map, which has a pretty clear description of the legal trails. We mentioned the use, the recreational use, but then the fact of the trail signs, and then also parking, and then the trail steward. One thing to keep in mind, we talked a lot about the responsibility of the trail steward, and you can easily make a book about their responsibilities if you're not careful. We didn't want to turn it into the tax code, right? And so we just kept it simple, right? And so essentially, the trail steward will at times choose to close the trail if maintenance is required, or in the case of seasonal or weather-related events. The select board has the ultimate control over the use of the legal trails, though, just to be clear, all right? So you can override the trail steward, from our opinion, from our view. So that's about the trail steward, but
Are the stewards, if they closed the trail, would it be because damage could occur to the trail?
yeah, so yeah, exactly. So it's a situation where if something isn't done, it's going to continue to be damaged, or it's either unusable now or will be unusable, just to negative.
And get
That's a
worse,
negative,
right?
it'll get worse, yeah, exactly. Okay, right. Any other questions on trail steward? Okay. All right, now to the trails themselves. So we still, back in 2021, we sent a recommendation. I talked about it last meeting, and we feel it's still relevant. So and this refers to Baptist, Orchard, Falls Hill, and Crossroad. So for Baptist, if you read the document, a lot of this is just copied and pasted from this link that's on the top of the Eagles Trail site on tunbridgevermont.org. So aside from using during winter by Bass, this trail should be closed to other uses. Due to the wetland areas, this requires a plan to determine the use of the trail. Did you walk Baptist or only Orchard? Okay. Orchard, I'm not sure if Bass has shown interest in that trail since last week. But this trail should be closed to other uses when the ground is not frozen. Due to the wetland areas, this requires a plan to determine the use of the trail, all right? And then Falls Hill, what we said, until appropriate signage can be installed marking the trail, this trail is only open to pedestrian access, hiking, snowshoeing, and skiing. And Crossroad, given the current trail circumstance, lack of signage and maintenance has led users to leave the trail and go onto private property. This trail is closed until maintenance can occur, paired with clear signage. Maintenance will require coordination with the state district wetlands ecologist to plan for and receive permission for wetlands crossing at the low point of the trail. So that's all 4 trails. That's our recommendation. Now, you had allowed pedestrian use the past 2 years, right? So and a lot of these were recommended completely closing. Open to debate on the fact that it has been allowed, and there's a simple nature of recreation with pedestrian use, so we can talk about that, but that's our position today.
So you're sticking with them recommendations you made earlier.
As of today, yeah.
Okay. How many people go on Crossroad? I mean, is that a constant thing?
Sometimes when I was down here for the Memorial Day parade, Deb said that she might have seen a few people. But that's only because I ran into her, so I don't know the answer. Okay, yeah.
Well, I just had a quick question while Andy's here too. What's the total mileage of our legal trails? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh,
That's not very much.
No, I know, that's what I was wondering, and I wondered if Andy, do you know the total mileage of vast trails in Tunbridge
Well,
or just
some of them
ballpark?
branch out of Tunbridge a little bit, but I want to say 32 miles,
Okay.
but it's not all that in town.
Right, yeah, but around that, yeah.
Over from Selectboard.
Let me just tell you, I have it right here.
It was small, wasn't it like 2.7 or something? It's that, yeah.
2.45,
2.1.
45.
So what do you want?
So I would like you, so we need some direction. So first thing is permission to start a plan for each trail, right? Second is to be able to add signage that, you know, we may require some budget back. That's it. Brenda's signs are cheap, but people probably like to feel them. So they're not cheap, they're expensive.
They're cheap.
And then the third is maybe more of a sticky subject related to the current litigation, right? But permission to clear the trails is needed, right? So I think there's trees down in some places, but yeah, so those are the three asks currently.
I don't see any reason why you can't make a plan.
Yeah.
I don't know what's involved with making signs. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a big deal, is it?
I don't think so.
I don't know about is clearing trees considered maintenance.
Don't know. I used to know, but I don't know today.
I don't know, I wouldn't think it'd be any big deal, but. Use your judgment, I guess.
All on you.
Let me see if my lawyer's still here.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing you could do is start off with is ask the landowners
Mhm.
to clear.
If they're willing to clear.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because that would fall within, it's not a town doing maintenance thing,
And if they say no,
then we'd have to figure out. the next
okay,
step.
all right.
We just had another big part of a maple during that storm come down. So
Right.
it's now they're two big trees across our end of Orchard Road.
So I hear, okay to plan. Look into signage. And ask the landowners to clear the trail. Okay,
Or in John's case, you just go out, cut it 18 inches and split it.
there's still time to dry
Is
it.
it 18 or 21?
No, 18's good.
18 good?
Our furnace takes like 3 feet, so it's heavy though. For sure. So do you want us to make a motion? Yeah, we
Yeah.
probably should.
I make a motion that. We let the Trails Committee formulate plans. Look into signage and. Ask landowners before clearing a trail.
Yes.
I second that.
All in favor?
Hi.
It's unanimous.
Right. You made a recommendation, if I may,
Yep,
you made a recommendation about uses.
Yeah, good question. So
That were different, I think.
they're different, so you've allowed pedestrian.
why don't you come to us with new plans?
Okay.
Updated plans,
Which includes
then-
usage.
and then if we want. Or we feel we should change.
Okay.
You know, like crossroad back to nobody, nothing.
Well, that's what you recommend right now, right?
Yeah, so the motion was to allow all use with the trail steward in place. right? But then our recommendation is to restrict use until a plan.
I think we support the Trails Committee stewards right now. I have no problem with that.
You want to read the,
No,
Isn't part of the issue that, not that you're fighting about what the right policy is, but this is a really, really wet year. And then whatever you think is appropriate on Orchard in any other year. It's really.
right, that's
really
why
wet.
you got a steward is so.
Right.
you
so,
can
yeah,
Play it by ear.
yes, exactly.
If we get 6 inches of rain, then you might not want people on the trail.
A trail steward would have closed it, right,
Right.
during the storm.
Right,
I support that, that's like.
Yeah. yeah,
So should we add that to the? Or make a different motion?
well,
or something?
well,
There
that's
is,
kind of.
there is a. This looks like it was set up to be signed.
Yeah.
Right, so if that, you want to read that, I read this earlier.
My lawyer left, I'm not signing money.
That's sort of, hopefully that's enough information to support the trail steward decision.
Want lights or anything?
Based on the budget discussion earlier, I'm not quite ready to ask for that.
It could be a Christmas light. Just blinking away on Rudy's head.
Lightning bugs.
If you're looking for really durable aluminum signs that are fairly permanent, I can recommend the place up in Barry that we use.
Oh, great.
And they're, we get like 18 by, not like that, for like $40,
Yeah,
which is reasonable. And there's a lot of sign companies around too.
that's great.
If you need any point in any direction, they can let you know who we use there.
Yeah.
They're great.
Great, thank you.
Probably do whatever you want.
Yeah, I'm fine with signing off, and it's just that he's, as far as the stewards could close it.
Yeah.
At any point. I mean, we could overrule them if we really know, we wanna.
Yeah.
But I think we. And then what you said, Mariah, was that select boards have all sorts of power over
Yeah. it's
who
in
has
your
access,
packet.
right?
Yeah.
that Even if the state has rules on certain e-bikes, a select board can narrow that, right,
Yeah,
if they want.
yeah, it said that an electric bike can be ridden in places where bicycles are allowed, including highways, bike lanes, or bicycle or multi-use paths. But then it also said that a municipality has jurisdiction over a bicycle or multi-use path may prohibit the operation of electric bicycles on that path.
John Mariah.
You have a light on it.
There's a couple different things, and it says that it shall, let's see, I'm just gonna read it verbatim, so I don't mess this up. A municipality, local authority, or state agency having jurisdiction over a bicycle or multi-use path may prohibit the operation of a Class 3 electric bicycle on that path. This subsection shall not apply to a trail that is specifically designated as non-motorized and that has a natural surface tread that is made by clearing and grading the native soil with no added surfacing materials. The municipality, local authority, or state agency having jurisdiction over a trail described in this subdivision may regulate the use of an electric bicycle on that trail.
No matter what class, right? Because
Correct.
there are 3 classes
Yeah.
now.
Which is the current state of our trails.
So as of now. There are no e-bikes allowed on, I mean, non-motorized means.
Right.
No e-bikes.
This looks good to me.
Okay. Like Gary, read it. Or do
He
we?
can come in and sign it, we can
Yeah.
both sign it, I
Okay.
think it's good to go.
Great.
Mhm. Make a motion.
You make a motion on this. I make a motion that we accept and sign the Trails Committee Trail Steward Memorandum of Understanding. How's
Nice
that?
Nice way. I second that.
All in favor?
Fluidity.
All right,
Aye. Good time for the reroute discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again. George and John spoke about one reroute last week, and I think we left the meeting, and even Gary said, continue that discussion, right? After the meeting, based on the decision, we knew there was chance that the Dodge Farm would be closed off to recreational users. I saw an email that evening at 10 o'clock from John Echeverria to the select board to directed to Andy, right? As the past president, that as of that moment, I won't go into details, but essentially the property is closed off to the Bass Trail. And since, so I don't know if that's changed, I haven't seen any evidence of that, but I have seen John communicating with George and others about another reroute that goes above the legal trail, right, rather than below. So and I think the offer there is to reroute around the Dodge Farm building and direct the traffic there, especially biking traffic, right? So that offer is on the table. I think we would have a similar, if we were to accept that, we'd have a similar MOU, but I would want to run it by Vermont League of Cities and Town. It'd be a lot more complicated, but reachable, right? And I see it as a potential template, because as we plan on the other trails, we may find that we're in other reroute situations on legal trails, right? So it could be a template for Crossroad, it could be a template for Falls Hill, and so that's out there. I don't know if George, you want to comment on the trail at all?
Sadly, time has been very tight over the last few weeks, and I really only just got out there this evening to look at it, so John and I have really not had a chance to discuss it, but yeah, I think just in general, the idea of rerouting trails that are, to try and accommodate landowners in situations where there's, where both parties can benefit is an avenue that's well worth pursuing. The route, the most recent route that was laid out, I did not find suitable for bicycles, but I don't think that means that the discussion is that John and I are not for that discussion. So I would say that I feel at this meeting today, like I'm not really prepared to offer anything much more substantive than that. And I don't know, maybe John can something that. No, just that I put forward a very specific trail. It was based on a modification of a proposal that you put forward. That designed to address our concerns about preventing bikes going through or adjacent to the building envelope, that would address the bikers' desire for a connector that would preserve the White Rock snowmobile trail, that would preserve the Dodge Farm for hikers, that would allow the town to stop spending money on lawyers, that would resolve the ongoing disputes about maintenance, and that would achieve peace and reconciliation in our time. So that was my hope, and I just, I had another proposal, which I still think is the greatest, but that foundered. So this is what's on the table, and you and I should talk, George, what the concerns are. I think Andy's made the point that he's the president of the VAST, and so when we talk to Andy, we know we're talking to VAST. He's got authority, and you guys are more, I don't know, amorphous.
Select board has the authority.
Sure, no,
All I can do is say it's not suitable for bicycles.
Well,
And they have.
opinions seem to differ with the bikers. It's hard to know.
well, I think you guys can continue to pursue this. And see what you can come up with. And go from there, I guess.
Can the stewards for Orchard Trail, since this is connected to Orchard Trail for sure, be involved in the potential alternate routes? Workarounds really?
I'm happy to take a look at it. Andy, I know you expressed some anxiety about the time frame of these discussions.
Yeah, if I've got to move, I don't know how many miles we cross your property, but it's several. If I've got to move several miles of snowmobile trail through as many as 4 or 5 different landowners that aren't very responsive sometimes about getting back to a lot of them live out of state. I'm out of time. I need to go soon. We're having a meeting next Wednesday to start some planning and try to, brainstorm. Yeah, it's very time sensitive. I can't wait till December 15th to reroute however many miles of trail this is, and I don't know how much woods I'm gonna have to deal with, which is a big deal. There's streams involved. If I was needing a grant from Vast, I've already missed that. These bridges are between $6,000 and $10,000. That now I don't have an avenue to get a grant for.
I just want to make clear, just as Gary said in passing a motion that he was open to a compromise, in my letter to you. In addition to saying what a great guy you are and how terrific Vass has been to work with and how much I regretted the decision, I also said that winter is not immediately upon us, and if we can come to an alternative resolution, I would be delighted to welcome you back to Dodge Farm.
So John, just to be clear. At what point, if there was stewards agreed, select board agreed to a workaround? At what point does the trail have to be finished and open? Does it just have to be an agreement before you might change your mind on Bass?
I think if the town passes, if the town passes an ordinance. And I think ultimately you have to put in an ordinance what your rules are, rules the road for the trails. At least that's what Paul Gillis says, and I think on that at least, I think it's right. And your ordinance said that the Orchard Trail will be limited to horses and pedestrians. You would do that with the understanding that we are collectively in the process of building this alternative trail, and then we would enter into an MOA. And if you wanted to be precise about it, we could sign the MOA at the meeting in which you pass the ordinance. But it would be kind of a limited use of the trails, limited permitted public use of the trail by your decision, with the recognition that the town should enter into an MOA for use of a private land for biking. Does that answer the question?
Well, it sounds like it's right. If there was some sort of agreement. I mean, ordinances take time too, because we have to go through certain.
Well, I think we need to come to the gentleman's agreement so that Andy knows his future.
That would be nice.
And I think the implementation of it can proceed more deliberately. But what we're trying to get to is an agreement in principle, and I think we're down to a fairly limited number of players.
Well, and I think also that the Orchard Legal Trail, it's not the whole length, it's essentially the Orchard Legal Trail that's on your property, right? That
is affected by this.
Well, right, if we had a bike workaround, if potentially we could have bikes on the legal trail on the O'Brien property, so that.
Right, or you could work a bypass of whatever nature.
Right.
You're on, but we would be, under this proposal, instead of the complicated challenge of trying to coordinate on a below pasture option,
Right.
we would be operating independently.
But it wouldn't require saying that the Orchard Legal Trail has only this access. It would be just that section of it, right? That
Oh,
we're
yes,
working around.
just that section. And of course, it would be in, you know, in a technical legal sense, it would be an ordinance. And so 6 months from now, you can change the ordinance. You can say, we think we want pogo sticks and ATVs. And you could open it to those uses. And conversely, you know, I would be giving a license to use our private lands, and we withdraw it. So it's not a very legally, you know, stable. But it depends on whether or not it works well enough for everybody that it will become stable. People will support it. That's the hope.
Well, Vass operates on this, you know, at 10 o'clock at night, they could lose their.
Any night, any night. It's dicey.
Yeah.
Fortunately, most of our bridges held up. We've been doing some surveying this week. I was quite worried. I haven't found anything that's totally destroyed yet.
Wow.
That's a big plus. That was close. I'm going up north of here.
You really made one.
I think one of the things I want to mention was that on Falls Hill Legal Trail. I need to connect with Gary because I think he was going to talk to Tarrant about right of way. And I think our council said we shouldn't be throwing up rights of way, but it would be worth exploring that more. I don't know if you have anything to say.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we can plan,
Yeah,
but that detail would be important too,
yeah.
right?
And even certain things. Like how much land, what's the distance between the end, the high point, if that legal trail ending. And still on Cal's land to potentially picking up with Angels,
Right,
like there's
yeah.
I don't know if it's 200 yards or 100 yards or what, but it's not much.
At least 2 tenths of a mile.
Yeah. Right away.
That's a vast trail, right?
Yeah.
I've shared with Jonathan my own proposed reroute of the crossroad that I generated with Priscilla's authorization, but definitely not her involvement or approval. And I just to be clear, I'm not speaking for myself. And I think it's a great route. It avoids the problem, and it would be cheaper than trying to fix the existing trail. I don't want to be too over optimistic, but I think it's really a gimme.
Yeah.
So I just want to sort of throw out the possibility that if you solve Falls Hill, which, you know, it's just a matter of making a decision, peace in our time is within reach.
Is it?
What's that?
Peace within reach.
And Andy can be
I'm optimistic. I mean, most of it's out of my hands. I'm just hopeful.
Yeah.
As far as Falls Hill, there's no issue with the snowmobile club, right? I keep hearing that come. I don't even know where we are. We're good, right?
good.
As long as the animals are good.
It's in Tunbridge. What? It's in Tunbridge. Okay,
Thanks for the cookie.
no problem. I baked them myself.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank everybody for coming in. Absolutely.
Jonathan, as far as we know, these legal trails it's a 3-rod right away.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which may
so like,
work in the case across, across.
right,
Well, that's
crossroads is
what I
sort of-
wondered, when you set it over.
Yeah.
You know,
Red
to have
the needle, so to
Right.
speak.
and why each trail is unique in its
Exactly.
own way, is that might have a
Yeah,
a
exactly.
3-rod solution.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Good, thank you, Jonathan.
anything more?
We're having.
Did you hear about AI at a soccer game? It's supposed to fall at soccer ball, but it got on the ref's bald head. They're not quite ready to take it. Thank you.
Good night. I have a question for you, John. How do you pronounce your last name? This is the most mispronounced name.
Well, if I'm in Cuba, I say Echeverria. If I'm in, if I was the way I was taught to, I say Echeverria, which is sort of a,
Echeverria.
just sort of a bastardized version of the name.
It's Cuban?
Well, it's Basque.
Oh, okay.
So the family went to Venezuela, and then went to Cuba, and then they went to New York. And then the other line, the Smiths, you know, they went somewhere else. I could have been a Smith. but-
Good night.
The dog.
well, thank you. Becky, will
All right. So,
you turn them things back on, so cool it off a little bit. Well, it is,
Sorry,
but-
I'll tell you, that quote back on if you want. We should close this though.
Rudy, come grab a chair closer to the table. Becky, join us.
How much is the ground?
You're just talking.
40, 42 and a half,
40, maybe not.
is it 49?
It's 16 feet. 16 and a half feet.
Close. I knew there was half.
It's 49 and a half.
So you're done with me as far as any disaster
I
stuff?
think so.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we've all been talking.
We were
You've been yakking.
basically done with you.
I'm so done with me.
6 o'clock.
Any of you want to come talk about the school emergency plan, you're welcome.
Did you get that email that I looped you in on with Earl Demro about first floor flooding? So should we get the word out on that?
I've got it on that, I've got it on.
Yeah,
I don't think we affected, for finished floors, we've only got 1 or 2 people in town that have told me about it.
okay.
And I've directed them all to 211. I think the reason is they're puzzled. You know, we've got some definite damage in town, why don't we have more? But we don't, And they're
Say
struck-
Chelsea Village, where it's like one of-
they're struggling for their numbers, and now that they have orange declared, I don't know why they're still struggling away.
Yeah,
But maybe they're just trying to make sure we've all, the big thing is for me is to listen, the USDA got some money and let the farmers know if they don't sign up,
that was. the
they
second
won't
question.
be counted. So I've
Right.
got to try to get that word out.
And
Can you put that on the website? and
I
like that?
I will get in touch with you tomorrow after I see what the site is that they have to sign up on. One of you two to put on the sign.
And I'll put it, if you find out what it is, I can send it to Jeff and he can put it right on the main page of the Tunbridge website.
Is it FSA? That's under the agency act,
It is, yeah.
FSA. Contact FSA through the agency act, somehow we gotta,
That's what before the federal
yes,
government say.
next USDA is gonna have some funding for
Okay.
props,
Yeah,
machinery.
but we don't have a contact,
No, they've gotta sign up.
but it's not like calling 211, is it?
No,
You have to,
they've gotta actually go on the site.
or go, probably the agency of ag.
They could call the agency ag, but I think the agency ag is busy, so.
All 211, would they direct them?
No, today what I heard is that they want them to go to agency ag to FSA. It's on their site. I just couldn't remember FSA.
US. Vermont's.
No, you go to our agency ag
Oh, really? And then,
and sign up. They've got a site there where they'll sign you up
okay,
for FSA. And you've got to log in with your name, what you lost, blah, blah. And then
I'm looking at.
the governor's been hammering the agency ag.
Flood disaster response.
So the
recovery
agency
right
act is-
uh,
here.
this is Vermont H2 ag.
USDA, I think, is gonna work through our
Is there,
agency ag.
but I wonder if we are directing people to our state agency, or they're directing to. the federal
The
agency.
Governor's been hammering on the agency ag to
I saw it up in Colchester, the Moss.
Perfect.
Sorry,
Yeah.
kind of kick in the agency ag there.
was gonna say, I think you're gonna fall out of that chair.
Okay.
So
So
we should find that out.
We're
that to
doing it
go
right
on the
now.
sign.
Yeah.
USDA Farm Service Administration,
That is our state agency.
that's where they're directing them.
They're directing with the FSA, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if farmers had crop damage in Tunbridge. What should they be Googling? Our state agency? or
Yeah,
the
it's
USDA?
State of Vermont Agency of Ag.
It is.
And then
And then on the main page, it says got damage from the flood, click here.
So
Yeah.
let's send them there.
Yeah.
And it sends them there.
Because at least they could get someone on the phone. there,
That's
too,
what
which-
the governor's been trying to do with that, so they're,
Yeah.
then the agency ag will handle USDA.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
It's nice to have something other than 211 out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brendan.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Any numbers, extra.
Could we put that on listserv too?
Just like there's this in here.
It's
Listserv.
Just if you have. Crop damage.
I don't need no notes.
Thanks for the cookies.
Got it.
We'll put it on our town website and.
Yeah,
Ready-
Rudy
ready
is,
for you.
I think, gonna put it on.
All right,
Or on the.
so.
I'll give you the whole floor.
So is mine.
It's a match, 80.
We talked last time about the surplus that was not, ARPA, thank you. We had all these letters going around, I was like, oh, no, that's left my mind too late at night. Of putting it into our disaster fund. And we needed an exact fund because there was some grant money
Right,
that
you were gonna come up with the exact.
was like sitting in our fund,
Yeah.
needing being moved back. So the amount that
It's 30
put-
points.
yeah,
Um,
that's, she has $5,170.52, which she still has. Available to her in grant money.
Yeah.
So I subtracted that from the $98,885.25, which is combined surplus. And. And what's left over is $93,714.
Well, there's this right here. There's
You
the
guys-
folder for the or AGR flood response at the.
So can we move, do we have to move that to the emergency relief fund?
I make a motion that you spell surplus.
Yes. I think you can spell
I make a motion to move the surplus town funds to the emergency fund,
the emergency disaster fund.
emergency disaster fund. Amount of $93,714.73. All in favor?
We never called ARPA surplus, right? Just so there's no confusion.
So the ARPA, yeah, has been moved. But when we made our motion at town meeting, we said all surplus, all funds need to be moved to ARPA.
But we're carving.
This doesn't, no, this has no designation in ARPA already. All the ARPA funds have been designated to certain things. This has nothing to do with that.
But we can add it to ARPA.
You could if you wanted to, or we could move it to the disaster.
Right.
fund so that
That
we're,
makes more sense.
we're covering that.
All right, good. Just as long as it's clear in the minutes, like
Yeah,
it's
yes,
surplus FY 23 had nothing to do with ARPA.
it has nothing to do with ARPA.
All right. The administrative assistant made that clear.
Then the other thing, I don't know if we can do this tonight, but I have the tax rate worked out for the town of Tunbridge. You guys want to sign up on it?
Next meeting on Gary's here.
Yeah, rather wait from Gary.
Okay.
That's not gonna put you.
No, it just means that I have to wait to run tax bills and everybody's like, what are the tax bills coming out? I need to,
I'd rather wait for Gary's here.
okay. Oh, we will.
But you can make us a couple copies, John, and Mike.
Peruse it and
Use it, that easier.
see, okay. I will make you a couple copies and you guys can look at it. Let's see if using the
Probably you
copies.
could make a third copy, but Gary's gonna come in and. Yeah, sign some stuff.
Okay.
We could put one on here, we could put right on it. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start looking stamps there.
All right, so
I'm
they're
gonna be the
making a
first person
stand.
to play.
It's
You could pay it now.
fold.
I want to, I've been
You could-
talking out the bit.
You know, you can just.
You could just give me like a rough estimate.
Ballpark bill,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
got a blank check.
but it could be like the federal government, then you get some coming back. to you, right?
And
Your
then-
estimated tax,
Yeah,
if they find a reason that they do not approve this rate next time.
but town.
you'll either give me a bill for the remainder or
You
just
have
a,
to pay an estimated.
yeah,
tax.
read.
You know,
Got it. I'm pretty flexible like that.
Sounds good. Punch this in and give me the first, like rough draft. bill.
This is what it,
Yeah.
We got a quote here from Freightliner. For the new stuff.
this is not,
Thomas's new truck.
this is,
yeah.
this is
Four-wheel drive.
future. This is not the one that I think is already half built.
Yeah, that's-
No, Larry's
That's
got
a 10
being built right now.
Do
Yeah,
we know, do we know how much that's gonna be?
Didn't we pay for it, Ryder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Like 2
a
years?
year,
Right.
a year to get the truck,
Yeah.
a year to get the body.
You're way ahead of that. You've already, that's way out of your mind.
We haven't.
But we haven't.
There's
moved-
one. So-
No, because we
The
keep
home
getting
problem.
different,
Right.
okay, but we got a final quote here. Oh, got your pen ready? Come on,
I'm ready. It's been ready.
$285,644.
And how many cents?
No cents.
Okay.
This
Round
is,
dollar.
says local currency,
Okay,
so no Cuban money.
okay.
We can't use NFTs or.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I make a motion that we,
Rodney approves.
get this. Get this going.
It's a beefy boy, like Brookfield.
Yes, it's got that big, well, it's got the hydraulic hub.
Okay. Can I ask a
No,
question?
no shifter.
Oh, really?
This one's not gonna cost us as much as his current one, right? I know he loves his current truck, but
Yeah.
I hate his current truck.
It's a customer.
Well, it couldn't for 6 months.
Yeah. Okay, we'll give it 6 months.
This is like 2 years out. That's the grand.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, I said.
Thomas might be on social security by the time we get this.
Start that Bozeman.
That's right. Okay. Did we vote on it?
Yeah, seconded, all in favor.
All in favor? Aye,
We don't need the chair for that. Spend money,
spend money, so you can
get your tax.
tell Rodney
tax
that,
money in there.
that good news.
I'll let him know.
2026, it'll be.
Although,
3 years,
just
no,
a budgeting note, just to throw in your head. We may want to consider upping our equipment amount that we budget
Yeah.
every year.
Of what?
Because our equipment, the amount,
maintenance, budget,
Maintenance
yeah,
or.
well, not even maintenance, but the amount that we save.
oh,
put
yeah,
Towards equipment.
yes.
If that's the
Yeah.
cost of the
Yeah.
truck
Yeah.
these days,
yes,
our 106 is not going far enough.
yes,
Um,
we got a 7-year warranty,
Do we really?
yeah,
On the whole thing?
only cost us $5,800.
That seems like a
We
good
got
deal.
7 years
Is
on,
that from the time you voted on it?
Yeah.
Because it takes 3 years just to get here, right?
we even got 7 years unlimited miles extended. For
That's because we're driving,
the,
driving to the garage and back like.
for the last 5 years when it's getting towed every week.
I was gonna say,
What's
like,
the house down there?
is it the, whatever it is that he keeps, it was one, what was it, a month?
You,
That's
you're
about a month.
talking about front end,
Some of that, yeah.
what? well, we went with a hydraulic plant.
Yeah, I missed that.
We had a guy come out. For the town guy, they come over. And Matt and Simon was there with these inventions, basically, they make these hydraulic hubs. And we got a pump on the transmission, we got a tank of oil. We got hoses go up front wheel. And no,
You gotta lift it on it, or does it?
no, doesn't have to, because there's no drive down.
Oh,
So it looks just
you
like
put
a
the hole
two-wheel,
anywhere you want.
it looks just like a two-wheel drive truck, only. It's four-wheel drive, it steers this track and a two-wheel
The
drive. truck.
hydraulics drive the front wheels.
Yeah. And, so anyways, we thought we'd try to make a lot of money, but not much more money than the regular plan. Heavy duty,
Yeah,
and,
I would just make it as heavy duty as possible.
Yeah.
Our roads, so.
yeah,
Have they been good reports of you to have these hydraulic front ends?
yeah, he showed us, they build them for, Case through Holland, some practice.
Oh, yeah.
And he showed us a film where they, put them on power company trucks out
Yeah.
west.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're in the sand.
Yeah.
And,
Awesome. So far, so good.
yeah, that front end, $40,000. What else you got? Moving right
I just have a couple other business stuff.
along. Pressure washer following.
Yep, so. He had sent us an email just following up and had suggested getting the front of it washed again for the fall. And he said that he could do that for $280.
I would think we do that. I make a motion if we follow up on the pressure washer, $680. Well, second thing.
Yeah, that's like,
All in
and then it'd
favor?
be,
Aye.
sort of post that too, like, so
Yeah.
it stays nice.
Yeah.
all winter.
I have 2 liquor licenses. One is for Sledge Fest, it's
Oh,
called.
yeah,
That is this coming weekend,
having devices there.
What?
this coming weekend, Sledge Fest.
That's epic. The old American, big note now, even though the big deal there. They're doing something.
Yeah, it's like a little festival thing.
Oh,
And that
Supposed
is,
to come in, talk to us about it.
that's Upper Pass is doing that.
Okay.
And then we have a wedding at John O'Brien's farm on August 19th. That,
Becky, so we're in,
oh, Becky,
Who's doing that?
what,
Babe's spot.
is last year's on here anyway?
No,
So
but
we-
I can.
Fair. I
I just need a motion first. I don't need any more.
I make a motion, we have Roy sign, look at it,
That's what he's done. I second that.
all in favor.
I-
And then last thing that I have is I had an email sent to me by somebody who would like to remain anonymous.
But you know who this person is?
I do, yes.
Get it out of our administrator.
He's curious about a situation.
Some caffeinated blackberry.
Yes.
sparkling
That was
water.
right.
I'll just read it to you.
Not kombucha, I'm sure to call something.
Hard, hard.
He's curious about the situation down at Blakeman's Towing and how their parking of various trucks and trailers seems to be consistently overflowing into the access to Howe Lane and often right up to the edge of Route 110. He's got nothing against the business. In fact, they've been helpful to him over the years that he's lived here. What he does have a problem with is that I believe to be a genuine safety hazard that seems to be getting worse as time goes on. Trucks, large box trucks and flatbed trailers are often well into the road on Howe Lane, making it nearly impossible to see the intersection and safely enter or exit the southern end of Howe Lane. He often sees cars and trucks traveling south on 110 gently swerve away from the ever growing collection of trucks, trailers, and cars. According to the state, they maintain a right of way, which at a minimum 49.5 feet centered on the center line. Yeah, they also state that it's possible to have an agreement with the state to use that right of way if you're an abutting landowner. His questions are, do we know if Blakeman's Towing has such any agreement with the state? If not, is there a way to enforce the violation? Also, is there a right of way the town maintains for Howe Lane and other town-owned roads? The encroachment of trucks and trailers onto Howe Lane is the worst offense. And he's sure him and many others would be welcome to have some enforcement of the towns or states right of way surrounding Blakeman's Towing. So he just wanted to know if there's anything we can do. Obviously, we don't have anything for 110. I can reach out to V-Trans and just ask them.
Some like, the state highway and Howe Lane
Right,
must sort of almost have like an overlap of
Right.
right away at some point.
but I mean, after I got this, I did drive by and I was looking and like, it's pretty much almost in Howe Lane, some of the stuff that's parked, so.
Check out with the state, but maybe we could start by just writing a letter.
Yeah.
And say, government complaints.
Yeah.
about Stuff in Howe Lane, I mean, I guess we can't say anything about 110, but,
Right.
Would it be possible for us even to just put in like a grade stake or something and just be like. Here's.
I could ask Rod.
without- Yeah.
Yeah, I could ask
without being,
Rodney,
too hostile about it, just say like. This is where the right of way is.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can get
And-
the complaint.
I wonder. I mean, if we went 25 feet from our center line, be right in the building,
Yeah. Well, the state must. I mean,
and the same with the state, I mean,
yeah.
quite as far as
Yeah.
the other road.
Yeah. I don't think Tunbridge store here is the
Right.
right of way, I'm not sure, but at least,
Yeah, just check on the state thing.
for us to just refine. Weapons that like, well, you should be behind this.
Well, even if it stayed the hell off the road.
Yeah. Well, it's just like. With hills up on. Hill. I think it was.
I didn't hear nothing about that.
No, I couldn't understand. And that was generally no plowing anyway.
Yes,
This isn't too much plowing.
and that's
But it-
all.
We do tumble right after the rain. Oh, okay,
What's that? Two things?
my wife has OCD and she is going crazy about this desk outside.
Me too, trust me.
Should I just throw it in the back of my truck and take it to the dog?
And it can be free, John. You know, you don't even have to pay for it.
Thank
I'll
you.
help you load it if you want. It's heavy.
There you go. Oh, maybe tomorrow. I don't-
Okay. It was gonna be free and it was gonna be a nice desk until it rained
Right,
for the
that's
entire
always
summer.
happens.
And then it was not great. They took everything else that was out there. I hauled a bunch of stuff out.
How'd you
People
get
love
that
it.
desk out for?
Becky and I carried it out. I said, give me a hand with it.
That was one thing. The other is that we're trying to go up to Canada and we're coming back on the 8th, which is the next meeting.
Of August.
Yeah, so is there any way we can move the meeting to like the next night or the next week on Tuesday? Which would
Well-
be better, just so I could be here.
Which, I'm also going on vacation, but not until the 19th. So we have plenty of time, but I will be gone for one of the meetings. August.
The
16th.
second one, right?
I'll be gone for the second,
Where are you going?
Old Orchard. Yeah. A little more touristy than where you're going.
Doug's ready for first. roller coaster.
She is, she's crazy. She actually has a swollen shut black eye right now. So
Compliments of who?
herself,
Compliments like this.
yeah,
Go too fast.
yeah, exactly. No, She was just running around and just fell and hit it on the corner of the chair. And it's like, got back up.
So which, that, something,
Do it the next night, I guess.
Yeah.
So thanks for reminding.
I will. So Wednesday,
have Mason for that. Wednesday the night.
Okay.
All right. That's what I heard. Yes.
these are. These all have to be signed by Gary, so. Okay,
What happened to Gary? Was
he, I don't think he had anybody help him melt, so I think that it just was running late. He called me at 5:30 and said, I'm going as fast as I can, but. Here's some minutes, June 13th just needs signatures, that's all edited. July 11th.
To the signing stage at this point.
Yes.
Probably not need my help in this regard. Thank you all for your efforts.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you.
And I do have I have a request for bids that I'm gonna put out for the Stratford Road, but I'm waiting for a couple of people to read over it to make sure it meets the FEMA criteria,
it's for
the slope failures.
all of them?
Yeah,
So we're ganging them now.
yes, okay.
So the original one, right?
Is being looped in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It got worse, you know?
Running, better,
Yeah.
didn't change one area.
Yeah, okay.
Might want to buy.
They all look the same as far as like, oh, that's going in the.
Oh, here he is.
Can
He's
you,
coming in at $150.
can you do that? Rodney's talking along, like, beep.
Yeah, I can beat that for sure.
Or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Yes, thank you.
There he is.
Hey, Gary.
Next time you go up.
I'm gonna go in and approve these licenses. Hi, Gary.
Everything all done?
Yep, we're just signing stuff now.
All right. Well, it's next then. Think to be done by now.
Each one of the big.
Yeah. Everything went smoothly.
Got the
without me-
chair, things slowed right down.
Yeah,
Lengthy discussions.
and the sheriff show up.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rudy.
Thank you, Rudy.
We'll be seeing you on the Orchard Legal Trail.
When Mariah gets back, we make a
Will she
motion
turn this on?
to shut that off. We'll
Catch her up.
talk more.
How much of this stupid thing with the sidewalks are we gonna pay? Weren't we gonna pay some of that somehow or something?
We'll have to talk to somebody in there.
Is it all grants?
I don't know, whatever it is, without a hand, it's almost $45,000 to do the scope of it.
Is that all grants,
I
Mariah?
think I was.
Sidewalk.
So.
Yeah, we only have to pay